Secondary characters are so important because every story, I don't care if it's Tom Hanks in Castaway, where he's literally by himself with a volleyball, every story has some kind of a strong relationship dynamic. So we have to be presenting these, I'm trying to use a word other than dynamic, but these dynamic secondary characters who are influential from more than just a plot standpoint. Like the bad example says, the best friend who only gives advice and has no life outside the main character. You see that in a lot of romantic comedies. We don't want it to just be a tool that this character kind of serves a basic plot purpose. We need them to be this fully formed character, much like you would develop your main character, because that secondary character is his or her own main character in her storyline. Like Robin, Maya Hawke in Stranger Things, she feels like a main character in I think it was like season 3 or so of Stranger Things when she comes in. There's, and I'm seeing at the bottom of the comments, Sherry Douglas, dynamic progression. That's a term that I learned at Writers Bootcamp many, many years ago. It's the progression of the dynamic within the relationship. How are these two people evolving together, or multiple people? You can have multiple secondary characters, but also seeing the secondary character as if they are their own main character in their own storyline. Some storylines will be much bigger because, like in TV, you can spend time with those secondary characters in their own life. They have like a B story pursuit or goal or something. In a feature, you don't have as much time to be able to spend on those secondary characters, but you can still develop them as if they are their own whole character. Even characters like a Samwise Gamgee in Lord of the Rings, he's so defined in terms of who he is. He is always going to be that way. No matter what situation you put him in, he's going to be this loyal, optimistic, loving best friend, no matter what, and he's going to have high ideals. He's going to believe in something. So you always know the type that he is, no matter what situation you put him in. And even though Sam doesn't necessarily have his own separate storyline, you see it a little bit with the Gollum interaction, for those of you who've watched Lord of the Rings. But he is there to serve Frodo's pursuit and story. That's kind of the basic definition of what a secondary character is. In something like I mentioned, 40-Year-Old Virgin, you have multiple secondary characters. It's like all the guys that he works with, who are just kind of pressing him and pushing him into these situations. They're supporting him and kind of helping, but they're doing it for kind of selfish reasons because they just want to see this, train wreck. But they're there to support the evolution of the main character and how that character can change. So, and not just through the plot situation, but through the interactions with the secondary characters, the main character is going to learn something. So we really want to make sure we have multidimensional secondary characters. Number 7, genre confusion and tonal inconsistency. So this is not necessarily talking about mixed genre type movies, like Everything Everywhere All at Once had a whole bunch of different mixed genres, so-called, but in general, it was a science fiction, adventure. But there were all these other little references of, family dynamics and seriousness with some amount of silly. And so it's a very strange example, but you can still feel the tone of important, and it's all because of the main character and how, I guess you could say, specific her personal problem is. It's basically a midlife crisis she's going through. And from that, we have all of these wild situations occur. And so we can always come back to that core midlife crisis idea that this woman is going through. But from a genre standpoint, we want to make sure that here's the primary genre I'm working in, and that is going to, from a percentage standpoint, be the main focus. If it's a horror movie, then I'm going to have to make sure I get some horrific, probably violent moments in here, somewhat scary. It's okay to have some comedic moments and, a dramatic, emotional, confrontation between two characters that isn't horrific. But we need to make sure that, okay, out of a percentage, it's going to be 80% horror with the other, 20% kind of mixing some things. Once you start going into this other realm too much, like if you have this kind of fun drama with comedy elements, and then you present a scene that has this really heavy, suicide or very graphic rape scene or something, the reader's going to be like, what is it? Whoa, what's going on here? You know? So we just want to be aware. What is my genre? I want to work in my genre as much as possible. I need to be an expert on my genre. John Truby has an amazing book. It's like 700 some odd pages called The Anatomy of Genre. And it's more of a reference book. You don't have to read it from page 1 to the end. And he just spent so much time researching this thing, and I don't get any money or kickback if you buy his book, but it's amazing. And he has every detail you can imagine about every genre. So I highly recommend finding John Truby's book, The Anatomy of the Genre, or Anatomy of Genres or something. But anyway, so, bad example, your story tries to mix philosophical musings with extreme violence. I kind of use that. So I think this one's pretty straightforward, everybody. Just make sure you know the genre. Be aware of the scenes that you're writing. Am I going a little too far outside of my genre? Try to bring it back in, and you'll be much better off for it.